Good evening, squad. So tonight's session is going to be a bit of a compilation of the questions that have been asked throughout these 6 weeks because we've done a lot of live Q&As and there's been absolute gold and some great questions asked with some pretty important answers that are definitely applicable wherever you are in terms of your training. I thought actually anyone jumps on, they can ask any specific question moving forward that kind of might help them. Specifically where they are currently at and how they can progress forward with that one. And I thought I'd just put it into all in one, essentially. So I've kind of broken it up. So we've got a nutrition part where I'll go through the questions and I'll answer all those questions as well. Just so you've got it in one go. And also training as well. So again, you can refer to this at any point. Like I said, this will be put into a document, and like I said, you'll have that anyway in the document. But in the document, so you'll be able to refer back to this at any stage in the future, guys. Okay, and as I say, any questions you have in the group, please do fire away. Use this last week for that as much as possible, and before I actually get into the actual questions themselves, I want to kind of give some pointers or some kind of key notes I think will be important to consider when moving forward. And the first one is actually do the work. So if you have a specific goal in mind, no matter how big or how small that goal actually is, do the work. It's not your fault that you are where you are right now or where you perceive yourself are at that moment in time, if it is kind of now or like where you were maybe been at the start of this or in the future. It's not your fault. However, it is definitely 100% your responsibility to move forward and get to where you want to be, wherever that actually is. Okay, so I had a conversation with one of my other clients today, and actually when I said about you have to take responsibility for your actions and kind of what you're doing, however big or however small they are. Remember the law of averages when it comes to your actions as well. Don't feel as though you have to completely overhaul your life to see change. You don't have to do that, but you have to take responsibility and make changes that are sustainable, that allow you to still kind of see changes, but again, not completely overwhelm yourself. Okay, so something to take consideration with that moving forward. Number two is be accountable. So whether that is having a check sheet or a tick sheet where you are kind of noting down whether you're actually doing stuff, because again, it gives you an idea, so kind of a form of tracking, gives you an idea of kind of what you're struggling with and the things that you are kind of doing really well at. So you've got a couple of things you can kind of work up with that. Get a coach. I've got programs that are running after this as well, whether it's purely nutrition coaching, whether it's just training, even if it's just a combination of both, guys. Okay, I'm still here to be able to help you out if that's what you need right now. Okay, moving forward, guys. Here, so don't forget that. I'm not just letting you go off on your own. If you need further support, then please do reach out. I'll drop you all a message at some point, but it is there for you guys. Okay, sometimes having that person in your corner just to kind of make sure you're doing what you say you're going to do, but also who's just there as like a support mechanism makes a big difference. Okay, but be accountable. The third one is stop shooting yourself in the foot by stopping at the first hurdle. Okay, when things go wrong, a lot of people do this, whether you'll admit it or not. And I've done it. I'm not going to deny that as well. At the same time, things will go wrong at some point. That's going to happen. Okay, that is life, and unfortunately, we've got to kind of navigate through that as well. So, as I said last week, use the dial. Have best case scenario, one that is kind of what you're doing on average, and then worst case, what's the minimum you can actually do as well. Okay, throughout this 6 weeks, we've kind of every week is built onto the next phase of what you can do to get things in place to make it sustainable, essentially. But again, it's just trying to find what works best for you. Okay, so when things do go wrong, what can you regress it to, so you get something in that's positive. Don't have to be anything major, whatever that is. And again, this is where you can work out what the minimum is you can do. And again, when things do go well, how you can dial right up, essentially, with that one. Okay, but stopping at the first hurdle, guys. Okay, when things go wrong. And the final one is, if you ever tell yourself that you are going to get back on it tomorrow, or even next week. You know the saying, tomorrow never comes. But on a serious note, though, it's later in the day than you think. Okay, so take that as you will. If you have health issues, if you are looking to build mass, we are not getting any younger, unfortunately, and it's later than you think. Okay, so get started as soon as possible. Now, there's no reason why not. It doesn't have to be just exercise. It can be just changing, going for a walk. It can be drinking more water. Changes that are small will make a big difference, guys. Okay, like the butterfly effect. So anyway, into it we go, team, guys. Okay, so I'm going to start off with some of the nutrition questions. Now, this isn't necessarily in week by week order, to be fair. I've kind of clumped them all together. Things that I think are quite important for you guys to kind of be aware of as well. So first thing off is calories as a whole, guys. Okay, now in terms of, this is one of the questions you prefer, but I thought I'd put that in there. In terms of the best way to sort out your calories, guys, okay, is weigh yourself for a 2-week period of time. Okay, if you're trying to work out your calories, weigh yourself daily or at least every week at the same time on the same day in the same situation, as close as you possibly can. And then track every single day, whether it's through pictures, MyFitnessPal, anything like that. Track whichever way you've gone. We've already gone through tracking methods. And then at the end of that 2-week period, have a look at whether you've added weight, your averages have increased, because obviously it'll be up and down, whether it stayed the same or whether you've dropped a little bit. Now, depending on your goal, you can make educated guesses or educated decisions from there, or informed decisions to make changes, whether it is reducing your intake on a certain meal, or if you need to increase it, if you're losing, you don't want to lose that much, or you're trying to add, or if you're maintaining, either or with that one, guys. Okay, that's the best way to kind of sort your calories. But again, in the nutrition week, we do have a calorie counter with that one, guys. Okay. Now, when it comes to those who have calorie trackers, guys, okay, stop tracking your calories. Stop adding it onto MyFitnessPal, because it's not accurate, okay, at all. And it's very difficult unless you're in a lab to be able to kind of find out what calories you are actually burning, guys. Okay. And that's not necessarily to take anything away from what you're doing or the hard work you're doing. You're working hard in your training, whatever it is you're doing. But what it does by putting it into, well, by going off those, you think you've got a bigger deficit than what you possibly do have, because again, they'll probably say you burn like 1 million calories in a day, which in turn can be quite disheartening if you aren't losing weight as quick as you are and you think you're in a bigger deficit than you are, guys. Okay, so don't worry about that. The tracking over a 2-week period of time and tracking calories is far more accurate than doing that, or even the calculators will be kind of suggested are a good starting point without looking to add the calories you burn in there, guys. Okay, so make sure that you're doing that. Alcohol. Moderation is key with alcohol, guys. Okay, 7 calories per gram, and a pint, for argument's sake, is usually around 200 calories. Okay, now alcohol can affect the body in different ways, essentially, but it can affect the body's ability to burn fat due to the effects on the liver, because it stops fat oxidation. But still, if you kind of wanted a rule of thumb, try to just go in over 15% of your caloric intake for a day, or so you don't feel rough the day after, essentially. It doesn't affect your performance your day after, guys. Yes, you're going to have time where you're going to go all out. That's fine. But again, try not to make a routine of doing that, okay, or a habit of doing it, because again, it's going to make you feel more lethargic. It's a depressive drug, essentially, with that, and it will just affect you negatively, guys. Okay, when it comes to eating out, borrow your calories. Well, a few ways you can do it is borrowing your calories throughout the week. Now, this is for those who are looking to lose weight. If you're looking to build muscle mass, I won't worry about it too much, because no one's going to try and become a physique model, so you don't need to worry about that, okay, about adding a little bit of fat. But borrowing your calories throughout a week is a good method to be able to manage your going out, whatever it is you're doing, essentially. So, say for example, your daily intake is supposed to be 2,000 calories for what you've worked out. That's 14,000 calories over the week. So, to still be in a deficit, we can break that out throughout the week. So, say for example, we could drop to 1,500 calories daily. Then we've got 3,000 to 4,000 calories you can have on the Saturday. 2,500 calories you can have on the Sunday, guys. Okay, so you're still in a deficit throughout the week or even the month, and you can kind of manipulate it like that, treat it like a bank account, okay? Or a good way, if you're not tracking, you want a simple way to be able to kind of to manage those calories. And this is what I tend to do, is have a small breakfast or no breakfast at all. Drink plenty of water, so you're well hydrated. Again, it's going to fill you up. Have a protein-rich lunch with plenty of veg. So we're getting plenty of fiber in there. Again, it's going to fill you up. And then go out and enjoy yourself and go all out. And remember, guys, law of averages. Okay, if you're eating out every single week, it will become harder to be able to kind of do that. Okay, it'll be harder to work towards your goal, especially if you're looking to lose weight, because again, there's so many variables you are out of your control when it comes to other people cooking food or eating out in particular. It's just going to be hard to. It's going to be a slower process. I'm not saying that that's an issue. Okay, don't think that I'm saying I'm demonizing eating out. I'm definitely not. However, you have to be realistic with your results and what you expect to see. Okay. But again, for example, once a month is absolutely fine to do if that's how you want to do it, essentially. Okay. Easy to manage, and you don't need to worry too much about because you'll still lose body fat, and you'll kind of maintain where you want to be, essentially. With that one, guys. The other question was good that was asking. One of the key things I've said about is protein, how much to have daily. Now, as a general rule, I usually say 2 grams per kilo of target body weight, or 2 grams of kilo of body weight, essentially. Research suggests that it can be anything from 1.8 grams to 2.6 grams per kilo of body weight. And that's for people who exercise. If you're not exercising loads, then as long as you're eating more than where you probably started, then that's fine. And within 10% of whatever your goal is absolutely fine. Okay, so to give you an example, I'm around 90 kilos now, give or take. My intake should be around 180 grams of protein. I probably hit 150 to 160, to be fair. That suits me quite nicely. I maintain muscle mass relatively well. That works for me. Okay, so just to give you a bit of an idea, that's been 10-15% of where I should be. Okay. So yeah, don't worry about kind of overthinking it, but make sure you're just bumping up your protein. So make sure you get it in your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, or all your meals throughout the day. 20 to 40 grams per sitting will make a big difference, guys. Okay, and remember, it can be made up through other sources as well. And how to bump up that protein content I just mentioned is taking an interest in what you're eating. So actually tracking your food, or at least having a read of your labels. So you can actually find out what you're currently eating, and actually look at what you may need to change as well. And you might not know what your highest quality, high quality protein content is, essentially. So in terms of lean sources, things like turkey mince is good. Turkey breast is fine as well, actually. Beef, 5% beef mince, chicken breast, chicken sausages. Like for those, every 100 grams of weight, weight is usually around 20 to 30 grams of protein, essentially. So if you're getting those in, if you eat meat, then it's a great way to get that in each of your meals a day. Vegetarians, and you're probably talking against just around 100 grams, let's say otherwise. So lentils, legumes, or beans, yogurt, like your Fairy's yogurt, or like skyr yogurt, cottage cheese, halloumi, chickpeas, eggs. Usually per egg around 6 to 9 per. Well, it depends actually. To be honest, 6 to 12, I think it is actually per egg of grams of protein. 6 to 12 grams of protein. Chickpeas. That'll get you around 10 to 15 grams of protein. So that's around 100 grams of those things, apart from the eggs. If you are a vegan, then things like tofu, Moving Mountain Brands is really good. This is not chicken's quite good as well, but you just got to have a look at the content as well. It's not, don't have too much soy. You can get it in there, that's fine, but just mix it up a little bit. So things like your pea and wheat protein, looking at those as well are absolutely fine. And I know Tesco do really good stuff. All the supermarkets do good stuff to be. You just need to find it and what works best for you, essentially. Okay. But again, 100 grams of those things give you around 15 to 20 grams of protein. Okay. But again, just take a look, take an interest in the packets, or if you're tracking it through MyFitnessPal, because the carb intake, carb content, and fat intake content might differ a little bit. Okay. Again, I won't worry too much about it if you're tracking in general. Now, bulking out your meals, so knowing what is in your other food, so like things like peas, rice, and even making your sauces as well, guys, with yogurt, and then adding water, then adding flavors like mustard and spices. This is where you can actually bump up your protein content as well, guys, okay, and reduce calories, essentially. So taking interest in what is in the protein content of the foods that you usually would have what is in them. Like broccoli is not necessarily super high in protein, right? But in terms of like in terms of like the gram content of it and the calorie content of it, it's quite low, but you get a decent amount of protein in there. Okay. If you are eating on the go, you can get salads. You can buy any one of those things I've said above, but like getting salads, baguettes, buy like chicken breasts to add to it essentially, okay? And add to them. But again, just be wary of fatty cuts like your chicken thighs and things like that, okay? And again, even with like your legumes and stuff like that, you can buy them out. You can buy like soups you can bang in the microwaves. Those things are all right to have and nothing wrong with them. Again, as long as you're tracking what you're doing and you're looking at the content, you're good to go with that one, guys, okay? Protein powder. So the role of protein powder and why that should be important, guys. Now, why you should consider getting it, okay? It's not critical, but it's quite advantageous. So you can add a scoop of protein powder to yogurt, porridge, add super shakes. So basically put in a scoop of, or 2 scoops if you're male, 1 scoop if you're female, into a blender, add in like a piece of fruit, leafy greens like spinach, ice, half a glass of water, and some form of fat maybe. So it might be like peanut butter, for example, and maybe some yogurt. Blend it all together. You got a super shake right there. Okay, a very good way to kind of bump up your protein content, or even a protein shake and a banana, or a protein shake and a piece of fruit is absolutely fine. And even with the super shake, so you can even add nuts as well, or like flax seeds again, just to give you a bit of texture. Okay, but a really good way to bump up your protein content. Now, just beware of just having protein shakes all the time. Not everyone's stomachs agree with them, and you may have to play around with different proteins because it depends on your bowels, essentially. Okay, so if you're kind of lactose intolerant, then whey protein is probably not for you, and you might have to look at having like kind of your pea proteins, your hemp proteins. The quality nowadays is a lot better than when it was when I first started out. Hemp protein was minging. Telling you, sorry, good. In terms of kind of snacks for protein, guys, okay, so one thing to take into consideration, guys, is nuts. I wouldn't necessarily look at nuts as a major protein source, okay? Yes, it has protein in there, but you're probably going to get more fats than nuts, essentially. So they are good for you because you get good vitamins in there, vitamin F, vitamin K, but it's just calorific. So just be aware of how much you're having. Small handful, small cupful, it should be more than enough, essentially, with that one, guys, okay? And you can have water on top of that just to kind of to fill you up at the same time, guys, okay? And that would be absolutely fine, okay? Protein bars, again, usually get like 15 to 25 grams of protein per protein bar with that one. Just make sure you see what's in it. Babybel, I think there's 8 grams in one Babybel. So if you have 3 of them, what's that? 24 grams of protein. Win. Okay. Chickpeas. So roast them in the oven. Nim does this all the time. Roast them in the oven, put some flour on top of them, loads of different spices, herbs and shit. And it's really crunchy. And you can add that, actually, that works quite well with homemade Caesar salads, chicken Caesar salads, or even like veggie nugget Caesar salads as well. Something to consider with that one. Nice texture. Peanut butter, again, is good, but you've just got to be aware of the fat content, okay? A spoon, a small spoon and a big tablespoon will make a big difference in terms of calorie intake, okay? For those who are looking to increase calories but struggle to do that, fruit drinks, a good way to kind of bump it up, not just the protein, but just in general. Chocolate milk is good for protein and carb intake. So for like a litre of chocolate milk, it's like 40 grams of protein, 100 grams of carbs, okay? So those who are looking to add muscle mass but struggle to get the food in, that's a good way to do it. Look to your fluids a little bit more as well. Super shakes come good for that as well, essentially, okay? And like I say, in terms of like chocolate milk, if you don't want to have 1 litre in one go, you can drink it over like a day or like over 2 days, 3 days, whatever it is for that one. Okay, depending on how long it says, you can actually drink it over with that one. Now, if you find that family members, whether you're eating out or you've got family members coming around or your family members themselves are vegetarians or vegans, then what can you actually do to kind of work around it? Now, Nim and I are actually, well, I'm not vegetarian. Nim's vegetarian. So what we do is Nim will make her vegan or vegetarian dish. And what I do is I'll cook the meat on the side, or I'll kind of bang it in the oven. So chicken, burgers, meatballs, whatever it is we're having. And I'll add to it to whatever she's had. well, she'll kind of separate it out. We'll put it in a bowl or a plate, or whatever. And I'll just put the slab of meat on there essentially. And I've got my protein content. Okay. So again, it's no cross contamination, not really. Or there's ways around that essentially. I'm not going to go into detail about that. You've got all the flavors what your family are having, and you've just got your protein content. As long as they've got protein content in there as well. So think about your legumes, your tofus, everything that I said earlier. And there's definitely advantage of doing it this way because you can still get plenty of veg in as well and kind of bump up your content of protein as well through the legumes and through the your lentils as well, guys. Okay, especially if you're eating meat, so it's actually a win-win if that is the case. So first, don't feel as though you can't eat with family members who don't eat meat. You've just got to be savvy of how you do it. Okay. Now, this is where I kind of start touching on training a little bit now. Okay, so. But again, still to do with nutrition. So this is to do with PMS, and then we'll go straight into kind of training and PMS and how that can affect you in terms of calories as well. So when it's that time of the month, females will tend to have, I'm not females before we say it, but I understand that cravings will happen at some stages throughout the month, and it's just about trying to manage that, okay? And it's a very real thing. So I had a conversation about how to control like chocolate bars, the amount of chocolate bars, rather than it just being one, having 2 or 3 when it comes to that time of the month. Now, again, I don't have an idea about how this, and I can imagine it's going to be a very challenging time of the month, mentally and physiologically as well, for energy levels, cravings, bloating, water weight, and I can imagine the list does go on. But a few things that you can do to help is first and foremost is actually manage your expectations, okay, when it comes to this time of month. Don't put pressure on yourself to be perfect, okay? The human body is a very, very complex organism that we have little control over in the grand scheme of things, okay? So how can we actually manage our expectations so we don't get overwhelmed and suffer, okay? So in terms of cravings, if you want to eat chocolate or you're craving chocolate, there's a few ways we can actually go about it. Is you can actually borrow calories from elsewhere. So say, for example, rather than trying to eat as you normally do, like for the rest of the month, is you can either cut out your carbs in meals or reduce the amount of fat intake. So you've got calories to play with, and then you can kind of substitute with chocolate bars, essentially, or whatever it is, savory foods, if you like savory, like crisp or anything like that. Depending on what your taste buds are. And it's easily achieved that way, okay? But again, it's just being aware of what you're doing and kind of managing your calorie intake and seeing what you're doing with that, okay? Now, another way you can actually do it is you could possibly bump up your calories to maintenance. Now, by doing that, you're giving yourself a psychological break from dieting as such, or being in a deficit. This is for those who are losing weight. That is as well, or tracking at that specific moment in time. And what that actually does by having that break, it adds, depending on how many calories you've dropped by or what you made to be, you could add like 50 to 100 calories a day or over the week, depending on what your cut has been and how big your drop's been on a daily basis or weekly basis. And actually, this will be like a mental deload as such. So you're not focusing on that. I've got to drop my calories. I've got to kind of manage my carbs, take my carbs out, put chocolate in there because I'm craving that, X, Y, Z. You still do what you're doing and just have the chocolate in there. But again, you just got to manage how much you actually have or whatever it is you're having with that one. Okay. So there are ways around it when it comes to that time of the month, guys. Okay. Now, when it comes to training as well, so I'll talk about training a little bit more in detail, is time of the month is listen to your body. And that's the same with your food as well. Don't worry about pushing yourself or going heavy, okay? Because it might be a case of doing a set or 2 sets at a challenging weight, or slightly less than what you normally do, or just by doing what you actually can as well. Doing what you can on a day, the best in your day, is good enough, guys, okay? You will have a time. I think, I can't remember if it's week before or the week after, and I've said this, so I didn't even look it up, to be fair, where you will feel great. And that's where you will be able to push yourself, and the law of averages come into it again. So you might have had a bad week when it comes to you feeling like shit with your period or with your training, but by actually having a good week before or after, you're able to push yourself and kind of get the averages sorted with that one, guys. Okay, so just listen to your body. Okay. Don't put pressure on yourself when it comes to thinking you have to be 100% all the time. Okay. It will never work out that way. And that's absolutely fine, guys. Okay. So into training we go. So what weight to work at and how to modify that over time. So 9 times out of 10, lower body work will always require you'll always be working at a heavier weight than your upper body, essentially. Okay, just because the lower body's got bigger muscles, bigger global muscles, essentially, and generally recover better than the upper body muscles, apart from the arms. Essentially, biceps, triceps, and forearms, not necessarily forearms, biceps, triceps tend to recover quite well because I think we use them more than the rest of the upper body. So there's a couple of ways we can actually kind of look at this. Okay, so number one will be pick a weight that feels achievable. So what we've kind of done throughout this program is we've had, or in the first few weeks, is we've had AMRAPs, especially in week 1. So it allows us to see where you're at and actually give you an idea of what weight is going to create a stimulus. But by achieving or performing lots and lots of reps, we will eventually get some form of stimulus in there. It just depends on how high you got to go rep-wise to get there. Okay. So if you're getting 20 reps plus, then you have a good idea that you need to, or you can bump up that weight, because 20 reps is ridiculous and it takes a lot of time to kind of hit 20 reps, a lot of effort. So it would be better to kind of hit 5 reps or 5 to 10 reps in short period of time, but work harder in that short period of time. Okay, it's more efficient. Okay, but anyway, so saying that, if you have already upped the weight and you found that it works well for you, then you can stick to it, but you can follow certain parameters when it comes to choosing a weight, or actually setting parameters to be able to bump up that weight, or knowing when to do that, essentially. Okay, and we've done this in the program. So if you hit all your sets and all the reps, so usually what we do is we give rep ranges rather than specifics a lot of the time. So if you've done what the max amount of reps programmed, then the week after, add a set on top of it. Okay, so we're increasing your volume. If you find it that weight was very comfortable on the last set, on the final rep of that set, you can take it for an AMRAP basically, and basically get a bench. As I mentioned earlier, you can still get stimulus. If it's a light weight, you just might have to hit more reps. Okay, which isn't efficient for time. Now, another way, before you start thinking about upping the weight, there's a few ways we can actually manage this. And that could be slowing your movement down or increasing your tempo. So like usually tempos are good for like 2 to 8 seconds. So what we're doing now is building time and tension. And this is what we want to do to build muscle. And this alone will allow you to build strength as well, because we're going to be recruiting more muscle fibers to do that. Another thing you can do is, again, if you add a bit of a tempo in there, is add a pause at the bottom of your lift, essentially. Okay, because again, it takes out a little bit of the stretch reflex, which makes exercise harder. Now, if you find that you hit all your sets and your reps, increase weight the week after and drop a set again. Base is that, and that's by doing those other parameters first. If you can hit all sets and reps, and that included adding set on top of it, then you can look to increase weight. Usually for upper body, 2.5 kg to 5 kg, because again, upper body jumps are a lot harder than lower body jumps, essentially. Lower body would be 5 kg to 10 kg increments. That's yes for that one, if you're looking to bump up that weight. Now, if it's too heavy, you made a bit of a bigger jump. Now, usually I'll kind of help this with programs anyway, but it's good to break up your set, which will basically make it a cluster set. So the way you would do that is, say, for example, you're trying to hit 8 to 10 reps, but you're thinking, shit, I've got to 4 reps and that was really hard. I don't think I've got another 4 reps in me to get to the minimum of 8. Break them into 2 mini sets. So do your 4 reps on, say, for example, like a squat, right back up, 10 to 30 seconds rest, go back in, do another 8 to 10, another 4 reps, for example. You've still got the same amount of reps in there in terms of the 8 reps in total. We've just broken them 2, had a bit of a rest in between. Okay, we're still getting that stimulus that we want to be able to kind of get there. Okay, and I say we create stimulus, it's a win, really, isn't it? So again, something to consider if you do kind of shoot your load, basically, of how to kind of manage that, essentially. Now, in terms of trying to find maxes to work percentages off, now I haven't done this with this, but this is usually works quite well in a 3-month phase, because it gives a bit of time to actually work on percentages and kind of build up progressively over time. But to find a max is every minute on the minute, perform 2 reps. So every single set that you do, you'll add weight. So for upper body, like a bench press or an overhead press, whichever exercise you're doing, you'll add either 1.5 or 2.5 kilos per set. For lower body, you'll have 5 kilos per set. Okay, so you're looking to probably get around 10 to 15 sets a set. Well, 7 to 15 sets, depending with that one. Okay, and you'll keep going until you can't perform the 2 reps anymore, essentially, and that'll be the last set you did 2 reps at will be your 2 rep max, and then from there we can work off percentages off that number that you've got. Essentially, so the 2 rep max probably be in the region of like a 9% of your true 1 rep max, which what that actually does is it gives you a little bit of leeway when it comes to the loads that you are working with, because you're not always going to feel great. And say, for example, like 80%, which might be your true, so 80% of your, say, for example, you did 80% of your 1 rep max, that might actually be 90%, essentially, okay? And that would be very, very difficult to lift if you're not feeling great. So by giving you that little bit of a buffer, the 10% buffer, and going off the 90% rather than the 100% of your 1 rep max, so the 2 rep max, it gives you room to grow into, essentially, with that one, okay? Rule of thumb, and it works, it's proven to work really well, okay? And yeah, and usually you can kind of start from, once you find your 2 rep max, you start working around 65 to 75% of that weight, and then building there for like 6 to 10 reps, depending on kind of what phase you're at, okay? But remember, as I said, leave plenty of room to grow. And like, so many people have tried to go too heavy too soon, and kind of kill themselves, okay? Think long term rather than trying to get things right now, guys, okay? Law of averages, as we've said with that one, team, okay? Now, next question was, is it possible to build muscle when build muscle and strength when training for long distances? Yes is the answer, okay? Short answer. Especially in the initial phase of training. Now, by focusing on kind of polarized training, which is the 80-20 rule, you can increase the body's ability to recover efficiently from your resistance training session to be able to kind of work at higher intensity when it comes to your resistance training, your strength training. Okay, so what is 80-20? So 80% of your kind of conditioning work will be kind of zone 2 running or easy paced running, essentially, with that one. So basically your heart rate will be under 75, equal to 75% or lower than 75%, or conversational pace. So if you were running, you'd be able to have a conversation, essentially. And then the 20% of it, so say, for example, like you probably do 2 to 3 easy condition sessions in a week, your 20% will be maximum output, okay? So when you literally going absolutely gun-ho with it. And this is where like kind of functional threshold training comes into it, which is quite good. And that can be done on a bike or a rower. It can be done with running too, but again, might just be a bit harder with that injury recovery just because it's on your joints a little bit more with that one. But again, you'd have like a small amount of time you work for, your rest periods will either be equal to that or up to quadruple that, so you can recover quite well, essentially, okay? And then so you'd have quite more volume over time at the start of it. So again, allows to build muscle, allows to build strength. And the closer we got to your event, that's where your intensity would increase slightly, but you drop your volume right down. So you probably have to go into like a maintenance phase of strength, of muscle mass, so you can actually recover well and still get your condition work in there. Don't leave an optimal position to be able to do whatever it is your event is, essentially, that one. But make sure you get your sleep and your protein intake would have to be on point, though. Okay, you'd have to make sure you're getting that in there. Okay. Now, if you're struggling for time and feeling overwhelmed, and this is where I kind of mentioned before about the dial at the start. So have a good, or like the minimum that you were going to do, your better, so stuff that you'll do more or less all the time, and then best when you've got more time than not. So your minimum might be getting 2 to 3 sessions done. Okay. Now that could be anything. What your minimum session will be. It might be going for a walk. It might be jumping on a bike. It might be doing your resistance training sessions, doing the first 3-4 exercises. Okay. Just make sure you're getting them done within a week or a day. Your kind of average, or what you want to be doing more often than not, would be kind of getting your 3 sessions done within a week at least. But make sure you get your protein content in there as well, and your water intake, because again, these are going to be the key factors that are going to help you build muscle mass, which in turn is going to help with your results, essentially. It's going to help with your performance, help recovery, and everything around that, okay? And then when you've got time, like we may have had to for some of you within the 6 weeks of Strong, is ensuring that you are tracking everything that you're doing, you get your protein there, you're moving more often than not every single day, okay, guys? But in the grand scheme of things, focus on the big blocks, okay, rather than the grains of sand, okay? You bang for buck. So like your resistance training is one of them, your water the next, and then protein, okay? You're getting in around those guys, you'll see good things happening, okay? But for me personally, exercise, resistance training is the outlet, is the kind of thing that you should be doing first and foremost, because if that goes well, everything will follow that. Once you stop the training, resistance training, you will not do anything else, guys, okay? It's very difficult to do. I guarantee some of you have probably done that at some stage within this 6 weeks of Strong. And that's understandable because it is hard, guys, okay? But if you're getting that in, it makes a big difference to mental output, but also physical output with that one. Next question was, having little time, but still wanted to train. So what should I do? Okay. Now, with this one is what I would suggest is doing your main lift first and foremost. And there's a few ways we can do this. A main lift. So save down for this program will be a squat, incline bench press, and a deadlift. Okay, RDL or deadlift, normal deadlift, whichever one it was. To be fair with that one. If you're working on a barbell, then so we can look to because we're struggling for time, but to make sure we're getting that intensity in there or that stimulus in there to be able to create an adaptation in the muscles, will be make sure we're building to a 5 rep max or a max of some kind, 5 to 8 rep max. When you, so basically you'll keep doing 5 reps, if you don't get 5 reps in your last rep, you'll just go off the last set that you did that you got 5 reps on, essentially, whatever that is, okay? 10 to 15 minutes to build up to that 5 rep max, okay? What you'll do from that 5 rep max, then perform 2 back off sets off that weight. So basically you'll take 10% off your 5 rep max, go for an AMRAP, a minute and a half, 2 minutes rest. You'll take another 5 to 10% off, then go for another AMRAP, essentially, okay? By that, we're getting some volume in there. We've got the intensity in there by burning that 5 rep max. We'll get good stimulus, okay? Then what we can do is we can get 2 antagonist exercises and set a time for 10 minutes and then hit as many rounds as you can. So basically kind of like escalating density training, essentially. So what this does, it gets your strength work in there. So it might be kind of like a row and a push-up. It could be a lat pull down and an overhead press, or a chin up and an overhead press. It could be a lunge and an RDL. It could be a squat and a swing. Anything like that. You're getting strength work in there because you're lifting your weight. And well, the first part of the program, the main lift, you get strength work in there, specific to your goal. And then you've got conditioning work in there with that last bit where you're looking to get as many rounds as you can on the antagonistic exercise, guys. Okay. So again, even when we do that, think about law of averages, you'll still see good results. So picking 2 exercises from the session and work on those, guys. Okay. And in terms of training, you don't need to train more than 3 to 4 times per week for the best results, guys. Okay. Now, I've known people to train kind of twice a day, 5 to 6 days per week, and not necessarily got much further than those who just train 3 to 4 times per week, once a day for like 45 minutes. Okay. One of the main reasons for that is stress on your body. Okay. Exercise is stress on the body, essentially. Now, in the training week, we spoke about stress and kind of different forms of stress and how sleep is very important in terms of recovery for exercise. But when it comes to stress, it's stressful on the body and it needs to be managed. Okay, you need to be able to recover. And if you're not recovering sleep or kind of exercising all the time, you're not allowing your body to recover, and it's going to go into overdrive. And so flip that on the side. If you want to train up to 4 to 5 times per week, what does this allow you to do is have more calories. And if you like to eat more food, then that works quite hand in hand with that one. But again, it's got to be sustainable and manageable to kind of your day-to-day life. But your recovery is super important. Don't think you have to train more than 3 times a week, guys. Okay, you don't necessarily have to, but that's where using the dial actually comes into it. Okay, because again, if you find that you have time, then you can push yourself, as I mentioned about good, better, best. But remember, like one set, one rep is better than nothing. Okay, as an absolute minimum, guys. Life will get in the way sometimes. Of course, it will. We've already spoke about at the start. So just looking to get in what you actually can with that one. Okay. When the weekend goes, think about the dial. Okay, good enough. Turn up on the day is actually good enough, guys. Okay, I don't want to go into that because I've actually already spoken about that already. To be fair. Spoken about that. Yes, so how to combine a session. So this will be the last one, guys. Okay, how to combine a session. So this is, I've kind of spoke about this briefly in the how to get your workout in a short period of time, but good ways you can combine sessions. So if you missed a session throughout the week and you are looking to do 2 in 1, but you still only want to do it in an hour, good ways to do this is your main lifts. And to reduce the volume, so you'll do, say for example, we've got a squat and your incline bench, or your incline bench and your deadlift. Okay, you've got to get either of those in. So you could do your squat first. The one that you want to focus on goal wise, say for example, you want to build your legs up rather than your upper body, you'll do your squat first. If you want to focus on your chest more so, you'll do your incline bench first before you squat. Okay, in my opinion, but you don't have to do it that way. You'll do your main lifts, so you do your squat as its own exercise, your incline bench as its own exercise. Okay, so you do that on its own. So 12 minutes, 12 minutes, 12-minute block, 12-minute block with that one. Build to a 5 to 8 minute max. They do 1 to 2 back offsets, as I mentioned previously with that one. You would then do the session which you actually prefer to do. Say, so whether it's the kind of the squat day session after those 2 exercises, you can do that. Or if it's the incline bench day exercises, you prefer to do that after, then that's absolutely fine with that one. The second one is, again, do what I've said with the main exercises, whichever one is more important, 5 to 8 minute max. You can mix and match the exercise you do enjoy from the 2 sessions, essentially. So try and keep it measured as much as possible. So try and make sure you're getting upper body and lower body stuff in there as well, just so it's not, you're getting some variety in terms of movement, you're not just killing one part of your body. The third one is, don't worry about it all. If you miss a session, you miss a session, guys. Okay, law of averages will definitely help long term with that one, guys. Okay, and that is all from me, guys, in terms of the questions that have been asked, the main questions. So if you do have any further questions, we've still got a live Q&A on Thursday as well. But like I say, it's all compact in with this one team. Okay, so but remember, like I said at the start, team, okay. It's your responsibility to be able to make changes and overcome obstacles that you're kind of doing, okay? Be accountable. Have a tick sheet. Work with me continuously if you want to, or get another coach, whatever it is, with that one, guys, okay? Stop stopping at the first hurdle. Use a dial. That's super important, guys, okay? It doesn't always have to be gun-ho. Law of averages, okay? And it's later than you think when it comes to your goals, guys. Okay, and that is all for me. Bit of food for thought, guys, and I'll see you next time, team.